doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
Just to close this out, if I can now call on Demba, who I mentioned before is the CEO of the Senegalese Sovereign Wealth Fund, and whose president is actually the leading champion and sort of prominent co-chair for this initiative, along with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, as well as a number of other African heads of state and personalities. The floor is yours, Demba.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. So I will try to make it brief because we can spend the day talking about water, because it is one of the most important sector in terms of country stability and also in socio-economic development, side health and education. So I have a very hands-on experience of water. Actually, our sponsors own 55% of the water service company. Deserving cities in Senegal. So I'm an investor in there. So I am seeing day-to-day, as a member of the board of this company, I say day-to-day issues in terms of operation, in terms of cost, prices, customer not paying, and all those operational issues. And also, we are involved into the turnaround of rural water services company. There are two of them. And for example, tomorrow we have a one-day meeting with the Minister of Water of Senegal. So for instance, we are really involved in the water sector in Senegal. So if I want to make it brief, the first thing to have investor is the political sponsorship. It is really important. The politics have to show commitment, involvement, and a long-term vision of the water sector. The second thing is the regulatory environment. What has been done into the telecommunication sector and the energy sector should be done in the water sector. It is a growing sector, and it's not, let's say, a sector where people cannot invest. You can invest there and get some money back from the investment. So this is really important. So when you talk about regulatory, you're talking about how you segment the sector. Do you segment it by having water, drinkable water producers, transporters, and distribution? So water service company. And also, there is one thing which is really important in the regulatory environment. You have to decide who owns the asset. Here in Senegal, the government invests into the asset, and the water service company is here to take care of the distribution services. And one thing which is really important is: do you differentiate urban and rural areas, or do you put all the countries in the same? So these are linked to regulatory environment. It is really important that has to be fixed and decided. So once you have the political sponsorship, you have the regulatory environment set the right way. The next thing that is more linked to execution, to lower tariffs. I mean, where do you put your water plant? How do you transport water? And also, one thing which is really important in terms of water production, we have to be looking at the regional and sub-regional level. For example, here in Senegal and the surrounding countries, Mauritania, Mali, Guinea, what we are doing in energy with OMVS, we have to do the same thing in water. So having some common asset of water production, so that we'll be able to produce water in a more sustainable way and in a more efficient, cost-efficient way. So this is really important. So thinking at the regional and sub-regional level is about producing the water. Thinking at the national level about how I differentiate rural and urban. Thinking about whether the government should own the asset or we should have the private companies invest into the asset. And all the other things that people talk about are very important. Who is the referee? And what position should the government have in terms of arbitrating the differences between the tariffs? And one thing which is really important, because I did some tests 7 years ago, you have to introduce technology. Technology in order to make sure that you have not so much water loss, that your water production and transportation is efficient, and also you move from post-paid services to prepaid services. And the fact of moving from prepaid to post-paid will have an impact on the working capital and will have impact on the risk. That's why introducing some technology like IoT with low power wide area network like LoRa and Sigfox is very important. So I will leave it there because I can speak for hours about this area, but just remember one thing: political sponsorship, regulatory environment, and thinking at the regional and sub-regional level for water production, and introducing some new investors like independent water producers. So this has been done on the energy side, it should be done on the water side. Thank you.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.